Welcome to a very special edition of the Piano Men with Stanley Carr. I'm very pleased to welcome Tyson Leslie to the show tonight. He is from Kansas City and later moved to Nashville to pursue his dream to be in a touring act, and he landed the keyboard spot for 90s country star Tracy Lawrence. He's backed up several musicians and played alongside members of Taylor Swift's band, Beyonce's band, Kelly Clarkson's band, Florida Georgia Line, amongst many others. Released his first solo album in 2013 and released a follow-up single called Cradle to the Grave, which we'll play later on in the program in 2016. Welcome, Tyson.
Well, thanks. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So let's talk about your childhood. You're from Kansas City. Walk me through your upbringing.
Well, actually, I was born in Vietnam, and then came to the States in '75 when I was about a year old by way of an adoption agency that took all these orphan kids from post-war and put them with families in the United States. So there was three or four different planes that brought over a bunch of babies to the Midwest and the East Coast and West Coast, and I ended up in the Midwest and actually grew up in Greeley, Colorado until 1988, which is when I moved to Kansas City with my parent. My dad got a job and all that kind of thing, and so I started all my musical stuff started just by taking classical piano lessons from a lady that lived up the street there in Greeley, and I did that when I was, basically from first grade until we moved to Kansas City, and then I took lessons from a lady there for a short period of time, and then ended up at the Conservatory of Music, working there with the teacher in Kansas City who smelled like mothballs and other strange things, but he he was a good teacher. He was just he was a very strange person and kind of smelled funny. So yeah, and then at that point, like around that time though, also I was kind of discovering the Motley Crues and the bands like that of the hair band of the 80s kind of world, and decided that piano was not as cool as guitar. So I ended up winning a contest in Colorado, like a talent contest, playing Mozart and stuff like that. Took the $100 I got from that and went and bought my first guitar and just kind of started teaching myself how to play that thing. And then overall, many years later, I ended up, playing in several bands in town and stuff, and then ended up landing a spot at Howl of the Moon in Kansas City, which is kind of a scenario where, for those of you who don't, I'm sure everybody listening to this knows what Howl of the Moon is, but essentially it kind of throws you in a scenario where you have to play drums every 5 nights a week, or you're playing other instruments, other backline instruments other than just piano. So as a result, I just kind of taught myself everything else by necessity, and just playing. The more you play, obviously, the better you're going to get. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, is where just touring the universe with different bands. And I play in a band called Vixen right now. And that's an all-female band that from the 80s as well. And that's kind of my touring gig. And then when I'm home, I'm playing on Broadway 6 nights a week. And last night I did actually this weekend, Friday and Saturday, I do dueling pianos most of the time.
Yeah, wow, you're living the life of a rock star. Just in and out and playing with different groups.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's amazing though, that you're able to play with different people and go on the road and play in town, and
Yeah.
it's so cool. So okay, so Greeley, Colorado, you've been traveling a lot and up and back, and you had mentioned earlier you had taken lessons from a teacher. Um, do you remember the first kinds of things that you started learning?
Yeah, I mean, it was I think I want to say it's Willard A. Palmer is the name of the author. It was just a book, a series of books, and you start. I don't know, you can see the black. Well, I mean, I guess this is audio. I've got my piano right next to me, and I was like, you start with the black keys, just like the two black keys, and you play those with the right hand. You play with the left hand. You kind of alternate, and you just get that high. And then then you move to the three black keys, and then you're playing Mary Had a Little Lamb all of a sudden, and then
Mm-hmm.
after that, you just kind of keep progressing into the first thing is just all about coordination, and then obviously you end up starting to learn how to read music. You get the staff, the treble clef, and all that stuff. And this is what this line means. This is what this bass means, and all those things that all the elementary, this is how you play a piano, basically, kind of things.
The basics.
Yeah, so that, I mean, I kind of breezed through that pretty quickly, to be honest. Like, my mom says I started playing when I was 3, just by ear, just picking out stuff and whatever. And so
Wow.
but I didn't really start taking lessons until about first grade, I believe. And but I would still. My dad had like this little. It wasn't really a toy, but it kind of felt like a toy. It's just this little old organ that I would just sit around and play on from time to time. And I think my parents picked up the fact that I could kind of ear and pick out melodies, and so they were like, let's put him into lessons and see what happens. And I'm obviously thankful for that, because it's afforded me a really fun career. And just basically, I'm doing all, like you said, living the dream, so to speak. I kind of embody that slogan. So, I, I mean, the things that I've done in the last since I'm moving to Nashville, which hasn't been all that long. I moved here in 2015, and the things that I've done since then are far beyond anything I ever thought I would be doing.
You're playing with legends and
Yeah,
iconic musicians.
it's crazy. It's still weird. I mean, my dream gig was always to play with Alice Cooper, and I did that last month, or in December.
Wow.
I was in Vegas for this show for radio DJ named Eddie Trunk, and I didn't know I was going to be playing with Alice Cooper until a week before. I was like, "So what are the songs?" And they gave me the songs. The music director gave me the songs, and it was like, "Okay, so you're doing these 3 with Alice Cooper. You're doing these with Sammy Hagar. You're doing these with Kevin Cronin from REO Speedwagon." I was like, "Oh, holy crap! Oh, okay, that's cool." It's just like, what? So yeah, that was one of the best days of my life. To
Yeah.
be honest, that was incredible.
What was it like being with Alice Cooper?
It was great. I mean, he's a super sweet guy. He's all of the things that you kind of, it's funny. Like back in the old days, he was kind of pinned as this villain, kind of this, what Marilyn Manson was in the '90s, so to speak. Like this. And granted, he kind of was. I mean, he was a crazy drunk, and he was, and he was a shock rocker. He was the inventor of all that kind of stuff. So, but now he's just like known as this really pleasant, sweet Christian guy that goes and plays golf literally every day of his life. And in the morning, he's up at like 6 a.m. I mean, the dude's like 70 something, and he still performs like he's in his 30s. It's pretty wild. His
It
voice is great. It was incredible.
it's mind blowing. Did you want
Yes,
to
it was.
now when you started taking lessons, did you want to learn rock music right away? Did you
In a
do
way,
classical
I mean, I
first?
think I started with classical. I was very obsessed with the movie Amadeus.
Oh, I love that movie.
I would
Tom
not,
Hulce.
yeah, I would legitimately come home and do my homework and do my work and then watch that 3 hour movie every night, like every night. I was totally into the idea of I want to be that kid. Like I want to be that, like just the idea of what he's this kid writing symphonies as a child and doing all those things. That spoke to me in a big way. And then, and eventually the rock music stuff kind of, I mean, it was, yes, all the 80s bands and stuff like that, but it was also Purple Rain, seeing that movie and seeing Prince do what he did. And I was like, I want to do that too. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of all of it. And so obviously I didn't get to work with Prince. He was one of those people that I always thought like, do I want to do that? Because I've heard so many mixed reviews and things. Like some people said he's just crazy to work for, and other people absolutely loved him. So, but yeah, I mean, and to this day, I'm still very much into classical music. I wanted to write film scores for years. That's what I thought I wanted to do for a living. I loved, when I was a teenager, I loved guys like John Williams and Danny Elfman, and I worked in a movie theater for a long time, so
Wow.
I was kind of immersed in film scores all the time and stuff like that too. And I worked in the projector room, so you could really hear the scores and how like the horror film stuff, like what John Carpenter did for Halloween and things like that, was just fascinating. How you can take a scene that is just kind of boring and completely change the concept of the scene with music, and all of a sudden it goes from this like really almost silly kind of scene to being really tense or really intense because of just by adding music. And
Yeah.
the idea of how you could do that was I was like, man, I want to do that. But I lived in Kansas City, which is like the worst possible place to live to do something like that, right in the middle of the country. You know, you kind of had to be in LA or somewhere where people were making movies to be part of that world.
Well, I'd imagine too a perk of working at a movie theater is getting to see a lot of movies.
Oh, lots of them. Yeah, my friend Alex and I, we would because we had to screen them on Thursdays to make sure, because this was back when everything was filmed, so we had to
Mhm.
make sure that we put the movies together correctly, that there was no film that was put on upside down or there wasn't any issues. So we literally on Thursday nights would have to watch every movie that was coming through that theater to make sure that we built them correctly. And so we would be up until like 5, 6 in the morning watching movies sometimes, which was super fun.
Yeah,
You know,
early, but
especially when you're in your 20s and
oh
it's
yeah,
just you're awake and you're good to go. It was good times.
definitely. So our first selection here on the show tonight is a song called "She Danced Under Lights." Tell me about this song right here.
Well, when I was 21 years old, no, no, I was 21. This is the wrong story. When I was getting, I was yeah, I guess I was. I was 20. It was 21. My friend said, "I'm going to take you out for your birthday." And he took me. And we're driving in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's just pitch black. Like, where are we going? And then I see this kind of neon lighting in the way off in the distance. And as you get closer, you get you can make out the lettering, and it says Tangos, which is a club in Kansas City. And I was like, this is what we're doing. Okay. And we go in there, and the funniest thing is that one of the first people that I run into was this girl that I went to high school with. And I was like, whoa, okay. I mean, here we go. Now, there you are. Okay. And so, anyway, we get through the evening. We're just kind of hanging out and stuff like that. And then this other girl comes and he buys me a dance from the girl. And I was just completely flabbergasted by how, you know, gorgeous she was and all that kind of stuff. And we ended up talking and hanging out all night actually. And so I kind of got a little smitten with the girl. And oddly enough, you know, actually became real friends in real life, and we're friends for a long, long time after that. But I wrote that song about her. So
Well, we're gonna
there you
play it
go.
right here. This is "She Danced Under the Lights" right here on the Piano Men.
Excellent.
And we're back on the Piano Men. We're talking with pianist and musician Tyson Leslie on the show tonight about his illustrious career. Tyson, I know a lot of people they've pursued music by going to music school over the years, and some of them have gone, some of them haven't gone. Was that something that you did? Did you go to school for music?
No, I barely made it through community college. In fact, I didn't make it. I made it a couple of years and I was falling asleep. By that point, I was already playing in clubs every night, like 4 or 5 nights a week in Kansas City. And um, so I'd be back, you know, we'd be out playing until 3 in the morning or whatever it was, get home dead tired. And then I had to be in class at 9 o'clock, and I was falling asleep in class all the time. And I said, forget it, I'm done. So I just stopped going. Which
Really?
unfortunately, I didn't also withdraw so I just got Fs in all my classes, which did not work out for my transcripts. But at the same time, at that point, I just didn't need it. I didn't need to keep going, and I was already making a living playing music with the band, you know, and then yeah, just looking back even now, like it's one of those things where I wouldn't really even force my kids to go to college or do any of that. Now, granted, on the other end of that, to answer your question, you're talking about music schools and stuff like that. I was just talking to somebody the other day who said they had, they'd had Berkeley on their in their bio
Hmm.
as something that they had done and taken it off. It's like, why'd you take it off? Like, because literally everybody that I've worked with here in Nashville that's had Berkeley on their resume are monstrous musicians or singers. They're just incredible. So I'm just like,
Hmm.
man, I really wish I would have done that. Because it's not that I'm not good at what I do, but these people, I felt like, man, that could have elevated my craft even that much more.
Yeah, they're
But
definitely immensely talented.
yeah, yeah. But also believe that with that talent comes, with that talent plus the education that you get from something like that, that just brings out the talent even more, obviously, because you have to, you get oftentimes everybody's like, oh, you're so talented, you're so great at what you, but what it's like, you say you want to be thankful and gracious, but at the same time, it's like, well, I mean, it's not like people will say stuff like you have a natural gift and blah blah blah. I'm like, well, yes, but I also work my ass off practicing hours and hours at this for years and years before getting to the spot that I'm at now.
Right.
So that's the stuff that you don't see. That's the stuff that you don't, they're sitting around your mom making you play for an hour every day when you'd much
Hmm.
rather be playing Nintendo or something else. So, those, thanks, mom, by the way.
Hmm.
It's it's that kind of, you really get out of this what you put into it, as a
Hmm.
musician. So it's like, I mean, there's got like some of my people that are oddly enough my friends now, and I don't want to be a super name dropper on this, but I have to use these names for context. There's like guys like Richie Kotzen from Winery Dogs, or Nuno Betancourt, or Billy Sheehan, like these guys that are considered virtuosic players. Those dudes still to this day, at this age that they are, sit in a room for 4 or 5 hours a day practicing. Sometimes it's just like, well, no wonder you're so ridiculously good at what you do, because they work at it and work at it and work at it and all the time. I play here in Nashville 6 nights a week, so that is my practicing. That's me.
Yeah.
I practice. I just do it in front of people. So
Everybody's got their own style. Everybody's got their own method of how they practice, of how they get the rhythm going, no pun intended, like keep it
yeah,
going. And so for others, it could be spending 4 to 5 hours. Others, it could just be doing it the day of,
yeah.
just
And I'm way
playing.
more. I'm way more that.
And the thing
Just
is,
like show up and let's try not to suck today.
is you know the material, like it's in your head. The more you listen to it, and the more it's like, okay, this makes sense. If you listen to the song, it's like it's like the mental state too.
Yeah, definitely.
That's another form of practicing that I feel like a lot of people don't really take advantage of when, like, let's say you're learning a song, and you want to make sure you get it right when you actually sit down and do it. If you listen
Sure.
to the recording enough times, it's like, I get why they're doing this. I get why they're if you want to sound like the record, I think listening is just as much as important as it is sitting down and practicing
Oh,
itself.
yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of times too. I'll go to the grocery store or be at Walmart or whatever, and I'll hear a song that we play on a regular basis, and I'm like, I've been playing that wrong for 20 years. I've been playing that bass line wrong, or whatever. You'll hear certain things in the song. So when I go through to learn a new song, for example, like I've got about 35 songs I've got to prepare for this cruise coming up next week. Um, so I'll go through and I'll find karaoke versions of these songs, or I'll go find stems from the original stems from these songs, which I have hundreds of gigs worth of that, and I'll just pick it out and just pull it apart. There's also new like AI software and stuff like that that allows you to do that with any song, which is insane.
It's
So I had a
scary.
but it's great for people that like, because back in the olden days, because I'm old, of trying to learn songs, you had the cassette or the record, and then you're just like, you can't slow it down, you can't pause it, you can't watch somebody's hands on YouTube. You had to like just play through it, rewind it, play through it, play that part again, rewind it, and do it over and over until you had it. And now, like, I did a Queen tribute thing, and I had to learn "Love of My Life," which is a freaking hard song. And Freddie Mercury is an extremely underrated piano player, by the way. But
Oh, no question.
I put that song in some software that just slowed it down to 50%, and because it's a straight up classical song, and I was like, man, this middle section was really hard to get, and so I just put it on. I would, find the beginning of that phrase, the end of the phrase, and just loop it at 50% and just play through it, a little bit at a time until I had the motion and the fingering down to where, okay, I got it at 50%, bump it up to 75%. All right, let's go to 80, and then eventually get to, full speed. We didn't have those same tools before. Now I can go on YouTube and go, wait, how's Billy playing that bass line on that Mr. Big song that's got a million notes on it? And I can watch some guy with the beard just like, decipher the thing at half the speed. I'm like, oh, wait, okay, I never thought of it that way. But back before, we had to just hope that it would show up in a Guitar Tab magazine, and that or that your ear was good enough to kind of figure it out or
Yeah, it
get
was just
close
kind of
enough.
it was just kind of like doing with what doing what your gut told you, or just basically assuming like that was it,
Yeah,
instead of just, you know, the crazy thing is now is like you have technology at your fingertips. Everything's so accessible now.
it
It's
is.
insane.
Yeah, but
You
it's
can find
definitely makes
anything.
makes song learning a lot easier for sure.
It does. It definitely does. So when you first started gigging and playing music, tell me about that, because that had to have been nerve-wracking.
Well, when I first started, I was, a teenager playing in clubs where you weren't even old enough to be in there. So what would happen is you'd be out in the cold, and in Kansas City, it's December, it's snow outside, and you got to stand out in the cold because they won't let you in the club until 5 minutes before you're supposed to play. You got to get up there, you know, throw everything together as quickly as possible, do a quick sound check, and away you go. And you play the show, you play your 30-minute set or whatever, because you're probably opening for somebody, and then as soon as you're done, they kick you right out because you're not supposed to be there, even though you want to watch the headliner and stuff like that, or you're opening for a national act and things. That you're like, man, I really want to. Nope, you got to go. No. So you just sit outside the club and listen to the band. So we did a lot of that when I was younger, and then eventually, just the kind of learning how to book your own shows and the things that you do when you're young, and how to develop relationships with club owners, how to schmooze over sound guys because they're grumpy and they're old and they've been working in that club for 25 years and they hate everybody. So how do you make this guy happy so your band sounds good, and so they don't uh, uh, yell at you and throw or make there's so many different facets of the entertainment business that
Hmm.
you don't realize when you're a young person until you're kind of thrown into it. And then eventually, when I was in my 20s, just getting in a van and trailer and traveling all over the country with the band called Pomeroy, and just playing, just not being able to afford enough to get your own value meal at Taco Bell, so you get two of them and you split it because that you have $6 to feed all five of us, because
Hmm.
we're broke and had nothing, and we're trying to work towards the dream and all that kind of stuff and all the things that I'm doing now. Um, those are the kinds of things that I think, because they're humbling and because they're so challenging, it makes for a more well-rounded human being as you get older. Not even a musician, but just as a person, how to treat people. Because one thing that's, I don't know if I'm getting diverting from the original question too much, but it's like one thing that I've learned in our business is so much of what we do is based on our reputation and how we treat others. And you might be a better player than the next guy behind you, but the guy behind you is a nicer person and more fun to hang out with and get along with. So I'm gonna pick him because the other guy, great player, incredible musician, but he's kind of a jerk, or he's kind of, I don't know,
Prima donna.
he doesn't work well with others, so to speak.
Hmm.
So that team player is going to be much more fun to work with in the long run, even though he can't play the billion notes or whatever it is that the other guy can. But the other guy, he's got it down. He's got the songs down. He plays it like the record. Cool, let's go with him. you know,
Yeah,
because
I
he's so
mean,
much more fun to hang out with and stuff.
it's all about basic human decency,
For
and
sure.
especially in this time, that we're living in right now, that's something that can apply to anybody,
Yeah, yeah.
any profession. And that's definitely something that should be addressed more often.
Yeah.
So we'll segue here into our next selection. This song is called "Little Green Honda." Who came up
Nice.
with this one?
I did. I mean, everything on my record I wrote. This song though was so I was in a band called 90 Minutes. It was all 90s covers, and we had a girl in the band. She was a, I mean, she was a firecracker. She was something else, and she still is, I'm sure. But she had this little green Honda car, this Honda Accord, that her transmission was jacked up. And so after the gigs, the band would have to go push her car out of her parking spot because it wouldn't go in reverse. So that way she could leave to go home. And there was a big crack in the windshield because her boyfriend at the time punched the windshield and put a crack in it. And I was like, this car is the biggest piece of crap. Like it's so ridiculous that this is kind of funny subject matter for a song. So I
Wow,
wrote the song about it.
that's hilarious. All right, this is Little Green Honda right here on the Piano Men. And we're back on the Piano Men talking with pianist and musician Tyson Leslie here about his time in the music business. So Tyson, tell me about what made you decide to move to Nashville.
um, I was playing at Out the Moon 2015. I'd played with every one of my heroes in Kansas City, all of them, everybody I grew up listening to. And, I worked with all of them at some point. I was burning out pretty hard. I was I kind of hit the ceiling. I was tired of How the Moon. I was not really sure where my career was going. I'd had my first big break playing with Corey Taylor from Slipknot in 2009 and 10. And when that ended, I was like, well, there was my shot. I don't think I'm going to get another one. Like, because, when you're kind of in your late 30s, it just seems like, well, I'm getting too old for this. Like, people aren't going to call once I get past 40. That's just kind of a perception you have in your own mind.
Mhm.
And then I got a call from a guy named Rich Redmond who plays drums for Jason Aldean. And he was a friend of mine because he came in and sat in with our 90s band at one point. Um, and he said, hey, I've got a gig I think you'd be good for. He knew me as a bass guitar player because I played bass in that band. And it was a country kind of startup band, van and trailer. I was like, dude, I'm 40 years old. I've got 3 kids. I did that in my 20s and I had a blast, but I can't afford to do that now. What else you got? And he was like, well, what do you want to do with your music career and stuff like that? And I had to hang up the phone because I didn't have an answer for him yet at that point. And so he said, hang up the phone, think about it overnight, and be really honest with me and with yourself about what you're looking for. Call me tomorrow. Let's get this figured out. So I called him and I said, hey, honestly, I think I want to do what you're doing. I want to be on the road again. I want to get out there and do the real gigs before I'm too old and age out of this whole thing. And he said, well, you got to move to Nashville. You got to be present to win. You got to come here because if you got to audition, you got a lunch, you got to take any of those kinds of things. You can't be making flight arrangements. You got to be like, hey, I'll see you in 40 minutes or 20 minutes. I'll be down there, whatever. You got to be ready to go. And so I talked to my girlfriend at the time, and we were both also at that time in a crossroads in our own lives, trying to figure out are we going to do this or not or whatever. Um, and so we just said, let's just go for it, see what happens. We moved here in June of 2015. I was hopping on a bus with Tracy in September of 2015. Like literally like 2 or 3 months later, I had my first major gig. It was ridiculous. And I felt bad. I remember feeling like guilty. So it's like, how am I getting this gig? That all these people have been here for years trying to get a gig like this, and here I am. I haven't even been here 3 months, and I'm already jumping on a bus with this like country superstar for the '90s. This is crazy. And then I realized that I really suck at '90s country and that I don't really belong there. So I did that for about a month, and that was it. I got fired from the gig, And I, I mean, and then I went to this jam which is the reason I got the gig in the first place. It's kind of a lot of long story short, but, um, and thinking, man, I'm gonna see these people and I'm gonna feel terrible because they're gonna say, "How's the gig going?" And I'm gonna be like, "Well, I already lost the gig." I mean, and sure enough, I go into the rehearsal, and the first person I saw was Matt Billingsley from Taylor Swift's band, and he's like, "Dude, I heard you got the Tracy gig." I was like, "Yeah, no, I don't have it anymore. I've already got fired because I kind of had a bad night and just wasn't focused." And he's like, "Well, man, I'm sorry to hear that, but here's the deal. I want you to look around this room and realize that everybody in this room has been fired from a gig. Everybody, including me. I got fired from Lady Antebellum, and now I have the best gig in the world." I was like, yes, you do." So, so that was really helpful because everybody was supportive and very, really cool. And so I just went back to doing dueling pianos at the Big Bang when we had a Big Bang here in Nashville, and I did that for about a year, and then I got the call to do the Vixen gig, and I've been on that ever since.
Well, it's this is all a learning experience, right?
For sure.
And you've had experiences playing with all these people, like you talked about. You had to be disciplined to play piano, to practice, to get in the right frame of mind, and sometimes we screw up.
That's
It
right. That's right.
happens. Was there any one thing in particular that you learned from being fired that has stuck with you to this day?
It just was more about better preparation before going into the gig. I had about a week and a half to learn 38 songs for the Tracy gig. I was in, and I thought I had it down fairly well. However, um, that was a genre that I was unfamiliar. When Tracy Lawrence was popular in the 90s, I was listening to Alice in Chains and Tool and Rage Against the Machine. I wasn't listening to country at all. So I'd never heard any of his songs ever up to that when it up up till when it was time to do the gig. So I learned all that stuff from nothing. And so with Vixen, I was like, okay, I know how to prepare a little bit better as a result of what happened with Tracy. I went in, I learned both of their albums all the way through. Everything was charted out, everything was ready to go, just in case they called. Didn't matter what song they call, I'm ready to go. Because at that point, they only had two albums worth of music that they're playing live. They didn't play really anything off the third album, and so I just overly prepared and differently, and really, really honed in on the parts. Whereas with the '90s country thing, that was also a genre that I'd never played before, and that the guys and women, the men and women that played on those records in the 90s were the absolute best musicians in the world. Like, not even exaggerating. Like, you got Dan Huff and you got guys like Brent, I can't think of his last name, the guitar player, that everybody knows, except for me for some reason, but just like literally like the world's best musicians playing on these records. And the piano playing during 90s country was far more busy than it is during Florida Georgia Line songs or Sam Hunt or any of that kind of stuff or Morgan Wallen. It's very stride piano, honky tonk, that kind of walk it into saloon type of thing. And it's just like when you're a piano player or any instrument for that matter, most people just learn a specific style, whether it's rock or they come up as a country player, they come up as a gospel player, they come up as whatever. And so all of a sudden it's like you go from being this rock guy or R&B guy. I played funk for a long, long time, and now it's country. It's a new language. It's literally like you going up to somebody and going, "Do you speak French?" "No." "Okay, well, you're doing it right now. Sorry." It's like, wait, what? Um, and so I think it did change my approach to studying how, like, if I got the Tracy Lawrence gig now, I could do it because I know the material a lot better and I know the genre. And I've been playing in Nashville now for 7 years, playing all kinds of stuff from 90s country to Pantera to Earth, Wind and Fire. Um, and so I could approach the learning of the stuff a lot differently because I know how to approach it in a way that I
Yeah.
didn't really know when I was brand new to town and had never done a gig like that before.
Right. And you've learned how to adapt
Yes,
and just kind of go from different genre to genre.
right.
What's been your favorite genre to play? Is it rock?
Right now, currently, it's pop music, and and basically anything but rock, to be honest, because
Really?
I've been playing rock music my whole life. I'm tired of playing Sweet Child of Mine. I'm tired of playing Jesse's Girl. I'm tired of playing Hit Me With Your Best Shot. I don't want to play those damn songs anymore. I play in a band Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at Kid Rock's on the Roof. And we play Like a Prayer. And we play Hold On by Wilson Phillips. And we play so much stuff. We play, Take On Me by Aha. We play stuff that's fun and keeps the dance floor moving. Girls just want to have fun. Stuff like that's just classic pop music that keeps the dance floor going, that are very keyboard involved and heavy, which means that I get to play with sounds and experiment with that. And I really enjoy that aspect of it as well. It's like, oh, cool. How do I get, everything to sound like, okay, so like a prayer, how do I program all of the sounds for this song? Because there's so much going on synth wise. There's a choir in it, so and there's different, this sound for the verse, there's this sound for the chorus, then there's this sound for the bridge. How do I program all of that stuff into one board? And technology has allowed us to not have to haul 4 keyboards to the gigs anymore because you can do it all in one board now. And so I've got a Yamaha MODX 7 that I bring downtown, and that thing is an absolute machine. The things that you can do with it and the sounds that you can get out of it to replicate what was actually on the recording. There are oftentimes, people come see us and are like, I've never heard anybody sound that close to the record before. I'm like, well, thanks. I put a lot of time into making that sound that way. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I love also playing like classic country, like 90s and before. I wish I got more calls from that for that. Very rare occasions where I get to sit around and playing Clint Black and George Jones and and all those old school guys, and even guys like Brooks and Dunn and Alan Jackson and Dwight Yoakam and all that. I love getting those calls because it's challenging, and truthfully, a lot of times when I get on those gigs, all that material is either new to me, I've never played it before, or it's just rare. So it's like, oh, cool, I get to play Smoky Mountain Rain by Ronnie Millsap. That's awesome. I love this song, but I never normally get to play this song anywhere else. So I love those kind of opportunities these days. But I mean, it's not that I'm not still a rock fan. I'm just a little burned out on it.
Yeah, I mean everybody's got to take breaks from things, whether it's music or sports or whatever it is.
Yeah,
You get burned out, you stop feeling happy. You start being
right.
down about things, and
Yeah,
I'm someone that kind of believes that for me, like listening to a song or listening to an artist or band, it's like cycles. You listen to a band for like 6 months or a year, you kind of get tired of hearing their music, listen to
sure,
somebody else, and then when you feel ready to come back and listen to your favorite artist or song again, you go back. So
sure,
it's it rotates. There's a lot of rotation that goes into that. So, but as long as you're having fun and you're keeping busy and doing what you need to do, uh, you don't need to worry about any of that stuff. And
sure.
it seems like you are.
Yeah, yes, I am.
When you're playing at Kid Rocks or playing at any of these gigs, do you have like you're talking about different kinds of songs? Do you have a particular song that you enjoy playing that you don't get tired of playing?
Um, a lot of times, like Sunday nights, the Kid Rocks, I do 6 to 10 on Sundays, and then I do 10 to close Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday there. 6 to 10 band is a different band than Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday band. 6 to 10 band is me and two old ass guys like myself, and then this young hot girl named Chelsea, who fronts the band. It's her band, but if I'm being honest, the time that I have the most fun with is when Chelsea's running the tip jug, and the three of us can just pull out whatever we feel like, and because of the fact that we're older, we can really go all kinds of directions. Whether I mean, we like to get a little obscure and weird. We'll play like Kitty by Presidents of the United States of America from the night. Well, like we know a lot of '90s music, and '80s stuff and classic rock, and we'll play stuff like "Angry Young Man" by Styx, or we'll do stuff that people aren't doing downtown at all because we're old and we can pull all these songs out of our wazoo that
You'll play
we're
with it.
like, yeah, we're just like, oh man, I heard She Sells Sanctuary by The Cold on the way here. Let's play that one. Okay, cool, let's go. And we already know it because we're all old and
Yeah.
we can handle it. And we're all burned out on playing the same old standard nonsense that everybody else is playing. So that's our opportunity just to have fun with each other and play stuff that we enjoy.
And it's very lively on Broadway downtown. Like you see a lot of
Yes.
people.
Oh yeah.
I've been that way several times, and a lot of people, they're either at the bar or they're on the pedal taverns, and they're
We're just
just having
puking
a
on the
ball.
street. Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
They're just having a ball. Oh
Yeah.
man. Wow. So okay, I'll name drop a few people that you've worked with or played with. Just tell me a little bit about them. You
Okay.
had you had now you had worked with some members of Taylor's band, Taylor Swift's band. Did you get to play with her at all?
Not with her, no, not at all. In fact, I've never even met her. When I first moved to town, I met, Matt Billingsley and Amos Heller, her bass player, or basically her rhythm section, her drummer and bass player, the sweetest guys in the universe. And we were doing this series called Loud Jams, which was put on by a guy named Tom Hurst, who was Tracy Lawrence's drummer, which is how I ended up in that gig. And they just, man, they're such great, gracious, awesome people, but they're insanely great players. And so when I put my first original band together in town, I actually used them as my rhythm section. They were my bass player and drummer, and then my buddy RJ Ronquillo, who at the time was playing for Thompson Square, and now he does a lot of YouTube stuff. Like that's he makes his living doing demos on YouTube. That was my band, and holy crap, that was the best. They just were. They learned the song. In fact, I just watched video from that performance the other day, and I forgot how good it was. I was like,
Really?
man, bringing those songs of mine to life was pretty neat. And so it's always kind of fun to every once in a while go and watch. You see the Eras tour movie, and you see I'm like, there they are. Just I went and saw the Reputation tour in St. Louis, and holy
Yeah.
crap, man, unreal. Like I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. I don't love every single song. I don't have T-shirts and the whole thing
Not a
like a teenage
Swiftie.
girl, but I have so much admiration for her as in terms of because I literally like all of us here in Nashville watched her grow up and go from being this little teenager who could barely sing and can kind of play guitar and was playing on trailer truck beds and Walmart parking lots to literally taking over the universe, like
Really.
to like changing the economics of the United States. Like that's insane and awesome and something to be admired for. And as well as and then the other thing is she the fact that she's dating one of the Kansas City Chiefs has brought a lot of attention to my
Yeah.
hometown, and that's been really entertaining to watch as well over the last year.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely earned her stripes and is definitely someone that's come a long way in the music business. So I applaud Taylor and everything that she's been able to do. So she's definitely earned her success.
Yeah, for
All
sure.
right. You have also worked with Vixen. Tell me about how you got involved with that group.
Um, I was pulling out a Target here in Murfreesboro, and I got my phone lit up with a guy named Tony Higbee who plays guitar for a guy named Tom Kiefer from the band Cinderella. And he said, "Hey, Cher from Vixen's looking for a keyboard player that can also do tour managing duties. Is that something you could do? Yeah, absolutely. Let's sure. Where do I sign up? Who do I call? What do I do? Got the got on the phone with Cher, flew down to Florida to her house. Me and Brittany, the guitar player, we both auditioned at the same time. We both got the gig at the same time, and we've been there ever since. And Vixen used to hang on my wall as a kid. And like I had a huge Vixen poster, and I went and saw them at Memorial Hall in Kansas City when I was younger. And it's an interesting dynamic being the only guy in an all-girl band, but I love it because aside from the obvious stuff, it's just like everybody gets along. It's really easy. We're all really good friends, and they're all seasoned pros. They know what to do, and it's the drama level is extremely low. Oddly enough, you would think it wasn't, but it absolutely is. It's I love it. They're great people. The music is fun to play, and we get to travel all over the world playing with some of my favorite bands too. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
It's like a family.
It is very
It
much.
really
And
is.
three of the girls live in now. After a couple lineup changes, three of the girls live in LA, so they're like best friends. Like they go and hang out together. They do all kinds of stuff outside of our little touring thing. And then our drummer lives in Detroit, and she's the only original member at this point.
Okay.
And when I joined, it was three original members, and one by one, they kind of had other things and obligations and stuff. And so, but we have a great show now and a great lineup, and the people really seem to. I don't know. It just it translates to the audience in a big way.
Yeah.
The energy from them is always good.
What do you have to say to someone that might want to pursue music as a career? And do you feel that the music business has changed in the last 20 or 25 years since you started?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's funny because part of you wants to go, don't do it. It sucks. It's just keep it as a hobby because to doing it as a career can be really daunting and really, but at the same time, on the other hand, it can also be extremely rewarding. And so I think a lot of it is just stay humble and be cool and learn your craft and pay attention to the people that are older than you that are doing the job that you want to do and be around and surround yourself around the people that are doing what you want to do because those are the people that will eventually lead you to be able to do those things. Had I not gone to that jam, that Loud Jams thing that Tom put on, the guy from Tracy Lawrence's band, I wouldn't have met Matt or and all that was Rich going, "Hey, just come to this thing on Monday at Douglas Corner. You have to go, uh, and so you can start networking with people." And I did, and I reluctantly did because I hadn't seen my wife and kids for several days, and I was like, "Okay, I got to do one more thing when I get home in Nashville, then I'll be home." And if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have connected with Tom, which led me to the Tracy gig, which led me to having lifelong friendships with all kinds of people that I still have musically and just as friends today. Those kind of networking things, you have to be present to win. That was the magic words that he said to me, and that is 100% true. I have one friend right now that I love her to death, but I've been trying to get her to come here for years at this point now, and she keeps finding reasons to not come here and then wondering why she keeps falling on her ass in all of these other places that she's living. And I'm like, you know what? I keep telling you, like, if you want to do what you're trying to do, you got to be here. And until you're here, you're just going to keep calling me every 6 to 8 months going, okay, this is terrible. Where should I go now? And I'm going to tell you to come here and you're not going to do it. So at some point you just kind of give up and go, forget it. Never mind. You're just going to, you're going to come when you want to come and you're going to figure it out once you get here. If you, decide to finally make the move, this is a life-changing place. And that's not saying that everybody that comes here is going to succeed or find that kind of whatever. Everybody's goals are different. Everybody has a different way of looking at all this stuff. Some people are perfectly content to play on Broadway 3 or 4 nights a week and do nothing else. Some people have been on the road already and I'm tired of being on the road and make more money playing on Broadway. Some people don't want to do Broadway at all. Some people want to write songs and do the whole like music row songwriter thing and stuff like that and work as work as a bartender during the day or whatever it is to make their ends meet. But when it comes to actual music and doing what you're trying to do, you need to be wherever it is and with the people that are doing those things that you're wanting to do in order to get to that point.
Pretty good advice. Wow. Tyson, this has been great having you on the show. It means a lot to me and to the
Well,
listeners.
thanks. Yeah, it's been
Yeah,
good to have.
of
Yeah.
course. Where can people find more about you on social media? Do you have a website? I know you mentioned your shows
Yeah,
coming up.
everything's just Tyson Leslie. Like my name is kind of unique-ish. It's not Bob Jones or, I don't know, just the same type, Jason Smith or anything. So my name, if you Google everything, you can find me very quickly. All like Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff's just Tyson Leslie. It's pretty easy. So yeah, just do that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tyson. You're more than welcome to
Thank
come
you.
back on the show. This is the Piano Men with Stanley Carr. Like us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/the Piano Men Radio Show. I'll see you next week.